Today I'm headed into the office for the first time in about a month. I've not been in since Ramadan started. Today is also, I think, the last day of Ramadan, so I'm headed out for dinner with a couple of colleagues after. But before that, I've got quite a full-on day, lots of meetings and work in general, so it's due to be a pretty busy one. On that note, my train is in about 20 minutes, so let's go. Okay, so my morning started pretty well, but then as soon as I got to the train station, my camera died, so I ended up filming a lot of what you just saw on my phone. Noted for next time though is to bring my spare camera batteries. So I spend the first half an hour of my day replying to emails and Teams messages before my first meeting begins at around 9:30. I have a supervisor catch-up sandwich in between two meetings about different modelling projects that I'm working on, before finally breaking for lunch at around 12:30 so that I can film an office tour. The clips you're seeing now are actually of me in the first meeting, and it's about the same business case project that I mentioned in my first video. In that, I briefly explained what a business case was, and I think I'm actually going to record a separate one on how to prepare for case interviews, which are the interview format that you'll need to learn to master if you're thinking of applying to consulting jobs. But getting back to this meeting, it was actually the first time that I was meeting the client, and for this particular case we're actually working with several other companies, so we basically go over the current status of the project before covering a number of risks and then finish by outlining the next steps. Overall, the meeting was super useful. Out of one meeting and straight into the next, we both log on to the Teams call, and the other person in the meeting and I both realise that we are in the office, so we can actually have our chat in person. Because of this, unfortunately, I couldn't film anything, but I can explain a little bit about the sort of modelling that you're likely to do as a consultant. Now, if you said to someone who doesn't work in business that you're a modeller, they'd probably assume you'd be strutting the catwalk in the latest Gucci pieces at London Fashion Week, but that's not quite the case. So as a consultant, the modelling you do will first involve receiving data from a client or a stakeholder. You'll then try and make changes to that data and turn it into your inputs before writing some code or formulae in Excel that will allow you to run your model and leave you with your outputs. I won't go into too much more detail, and I know that's pretty vague, but I hope it paints a slightly clearer picture. After the modelling meeting is finished, I decide that it's time for a change of scenery and move over to the raised desks, and I actually had a half an hour break before my next call, so on the way here I caught up with a few colleagues who I hadn't seen in person for a while. The penultimate meeting of my morning is another catch up with my personal supervisor. I'm also actually working under my PS for a project, so the first half of this chat was spent going over some actions for me to do, which largely involve filtering some data into a few tables in Excel. The meeting wraps up pretty quickly and I head back over to my desk because I've only got another 5 minutes until my last call before lunch. My last meeting of the morning was to do with, yes, you guessed it, another modelling project. You're going to have to start taking shots every time I say modelling in these videos, but I promise I do have other types of work. Because this next chat is in person, I can't film anything, so instead let's head downstairs and talk a little bit about how I found the start to my consulting career. Hi, I thought it'd be useful to talk a little bit about what I actually do in my job. There is a good video on YouTube, which I'll post a picture of here and a link in the description on what consultants actually do, and it's really funny because by the end of the video, he has no answer. In essence, we solve problems that other companies come to us with. If you are a business owner, if you are a public body, a government organisation, any of those, you have a problem and you come to a consultant, and that could be a problem with how your business is performing, your revenue's down, and whether there are areas that can be improved. In general, a lot of the work that our company does is to do with transport, and in essence we are a transport consultancy. I joined the company back in October. It's gone so fast, I forget that I'm 6-7 months in. The corporate life, if you will, up there with just having a lot more responsibility. A higher standard is expected of you here than is obviously at university. So the learning curve was pretty steep. I'm on a graduate scheme with about 16 other people. I've loved it so far. We have training weeks every sort of couple of months, and it's always good to see the grads that come down from the northern offices. Training is really good. I think you get a lot more personalised training than I think you would at a bigger corporation, just because you have access to people who are a lot further with their career. Drawing upon their knowledge is something that you can do if you're at a smaller consultancy, and I would encourage you to do that, because senior colleagues really want you to do well. They want you to do well in your career. They want you to do well outside of work. I think another thing that really is a massive bonus with this company is the work-life balance. Usually at other companies, I think you have to be there quite a while while for them to give you a high level of trust and for them to pass over that autonomy. But I think here we really have that family feel, and everyone trusts you to get on with whatever it is you're doing, and also to speak out if you're struggling. That's another thing that's encouraged here. In terms of like actual work that we do, that's modeling, that's looking at data analysis, drawing conclusions and links between data, using that in programs like R and Stata and Python. Obviously can't go into the exact specifics of some projects that I've worked on. Okay, this is slightly more intimate. In terms of your skill set as a consultant, you'll use sort of modeling software and GIS, as well as programs like AutoCAD, which I've used and was a pretty steep learning curve at the start. But again, as I mentioned, everyone at the company is willing to help you along the way. And I think you should pursue your own initiatives in that. If you are looking to develop in a particular sort of software, then definitely reach out to your company. I am now going to give you an office tour, wary of what I can actually show. It's going to be a very generic tour. I don't want to interrupt anyone's meeting, so I'll be doing a voiceover. Let's go. Okay, so we start off downstairs with the big meeting rooms. Now these are used for company conferences, for staff training days and other events and interviews. Just outside there's some loose seating onto the kitchen, which is pretty standard. We head round the back and upstairs so that I can show you the view from the roof. I'll come back to the second floor later, which is the floor that I work on. So the view from the roof is pretty cool. You can see all the way over to Canary Wharf, then the Shard, and also the City of London. The London Eye is hidden behind these buildings. When it's not super windy, I can imagine coming up here during the summer months is a great place to just relax and have lunch with colleagues. I have a bit of time now between my next meeting, so I crack on with a bit of work from my earlier calls. Things were going well. I was working at a reasonable pace until some hay fever started to kick in. Now, I don't usually get hay fever, but when I do get it, it's pretty bad, and today was the day it was pretty terrible. On the way to work, I bought these tissues from an unnamed supermarket, and they weren't particularly great. You can see here that these tissues decided to disintegrate all over my jumper as soon as I used them, and when some of the grads came over to chat, I had to shoo them away because I was in a bit of a crisis with all these bits over my jumper, but we made it work and eventually things got better. For the rest of the evening, I was just getting on with a lot of the work that I had to do, and aside from the tissue disaster, not a lot else happened. My workday ends at around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I have about an hour and a half until the fast opens, so all my colleagues at this point have gone to the pub and I stay behind in the office just to pray. And if your company doesn't have a prayer room, then what are they doing? I leave and now can finally show you a little bit more of the office now that it's quiet and people have gone home. I leave the office at around 7:30 and meet my colleague who I'm headed for dinner with now. After walking around Covent Garden for a bit, we decided to head to Ollie and Steen so that I could open my fast. The pastries looked so nice and I was so hungry at this point, I ended up going for a chocolate swirl and my colleague a cinnamon swirl. Just after 8, the fast opened and I devoured the pastry. We walk a little bit more around Leicester Square and eventually head into Chinatown where we try some of these custard fishes. I love Chinatown, man. There's so much nice food there that I'm actually yet to try, so I'm definitely headed back soon. We decided to eat at a place called Max's near Covent Garden. We get the nachos to share and then I got a halloumi and avocado burger. After finishing our meal at 11 PM, we walk all the way back to Blackfriars and head our separate ways. I finally get home at around 12:30 AM after a super long day. At this point, I'm so tired. I have a lemsip before heading to bed. Thank you all so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.